G'day there, my name's David.
And I'm Rosie.
And we're just wanting to share a little bit about our situation and story with our daughter with JIA. We met up recently with Sarah Hammond at a picnic, and she was encouraging us to share our story just in the hope that it might be helpful for someone out there who's just wanting to hear about how other people are handling things. So just to give you a bit of a quick outline of our story, we've got a daughter with a JIA who's 8 years old. She was diagnosed when she was about 6. She first started showing joint symptoms at about the age of 3.
When she reverted to crawling?
Yep. She for about 2 years before she showed joint symptoms, though, she had gut pains, tummy pains every night for about 2 years. And we investigated that quite a bit, and we found a few answers, but nothing really conclusive. And anyway, eventually these tummy pains kind of stopped and the joint pain started. So we never really linked those two together, but in retrospect, we can see that there may have been a bit of a link there. So just to tell you quickly as well about ourselves, we do a lot of research, like many of you, I'm sure, do. I've got a health background. I've studied health sciences, and I'm a health professional myself, and so I feel fairly well equipped to do my own research and understand what's actually happening, what they're talking about when they're doing research into JIA. So we researched, why does this sort of thing happen? How is the body actually behaving when we've got JIA? Why does the immune system attack the joints? Why is there so much inflammation in some children that gives them this situation? So we also looked at, what are the medications? What are the medical approaches to JIA? What are the side effects? What are the benefits? And how do they really work? Why are they the medications that are used, and how does it impact on our children's health? So,
and just one thing, it is idiopathic, and so that means they don't know, and so that made us question it even more.
The very term juvenile idiopathic arthritis. Idiopathic does mean that it's got an unknown cause. So that, as Rosie said, does give us some confidence to say, well, look, the answers aren't there in the medical profession just yet. So we thought maybe we'll see what we can come up with ourselves to manage this. So we had a situation several years ago, just around the time she was diagnosed, just after she was diagnosed, where they had said to, all right, we'll put her on naproxen, some NSAIDs for about a month, see how she goes.
We did that.
We did that, and she got significantly worse under that time. Now, naproxen, like most NSAIDs, is quite irritating to the gut, and this sort of fitted in with some things that we were researching at the time about how inflammation tends to be driven from a lot of gut disturbance, and how if the gut is not healthy, we really struggle to get inflammation under control in our bodies. So
can I say as well, because she got so much worse, it put us under a lot of pressure to get her better, because she was unable to walk and we had to keep her home from school. It was enough as an impetus for us to really look hard into it.
Yeah, so we were researching hard. This was early on, since we just recently got the diagnosis. And we came across a topic called molecular mimicry. The idea is that the gut becomes upset for some reason. Now that can be, dodgy diet, lots of medication and antibiotic use. It can be reactions to different foods. It can be, parasites or something like that. Just any number of different things can upset the gut. But once it's upset, the integrity of the gut wall is not there. It deteriorates. And you get a situation called a leaky gut, which is when different food particles, which as they're being digested, they pass through through the wall of the gut into the bloodstream, and
because the filter's not as
because they're not
fantastic.
being filtered so well. The body does what it's supposed to do when it gets a foreign protein into the bloodstream, and it mounts an immune response. So that's a normal process. but unfortunately, because we are what we eat, those food proteins that are posing an issue, they're very similar to our body tissues. And so as the immune system attacks those food proteins, it unfortunately gives some collateral damage to our body tissues. And in this case with JIA, it seems the joints are the tissues that are affected. So that was a concept that made a lot of sense to us, and certainly fits with what I understand of gut function and physiology and the immune system. So that sounded quite plausible and reasonable to me, and fitted with her history of tummy pains leading to eventually joint pains. So we used that concept. We did some food intolerance testing. We used a test called an IgG food intolerance test. So that's testing for little reactive proteins and molecules in the blood to see what you're reacting against.
When exposed to certain foods.
Yeah, so this test we did, showed that our daughter was reacting to about 9 or so different foods. Now, these are not perfect tests. They're a little bit unreliable at times. They're not perfect tests, but there's something at least to try. So we used that, and we've used that information. We thought, what have we got to lose? We'd cut a few foods out, no big deal. So we cut those foods out.
It was a bit of a big deal for her. It wasn't an easy process for a child.
But in the scheme of things, we figured, arthritis, less foods, we'll change the diet.
And she was pretty good in the end.
Yeah, so we decided to cut those foods out. And in her situation, it was things like eggs, dairy, wheat, gluten, legumes, shellfish. So there were a number of different foods, but most of those are fairly high protein foods, and that kind of fitted in with the idea. So we cut those foods out, and within about a week, she went from being unable to walk at all to being able to, run and jump and, not jump well, but jump off the couch and
just play
with her.
Get on the trampoline, do normal things.
So that was really encouraging. And so we stuck with that model for a little while, and she was doing quite well, but still having a fair amount of trouble.
I'd have to massage her regularly just to deal with, the pain and things, but she was a lot better than she had been.
Yeah, so we took that concept a bit further. We found a fellow called Clint Patterson. He does a fair bit of sort of online, YouTube, TED Talks, things like that. He's
podcasts.
He's a fellow who was a rheumatoid arthritis sufferer, and he went through the standard medical approach, methotrexate and medications of all sorts and various joint replacements and things like that, until he came to the end of the road and said, look, this is not working. And he did his own research, and he put together a bit of a protocol, a program that he now calls the Patterson program. But it's basically a dietary approach to managing your health and your inflammation.
And improving your gut.
Yeah, looking after your gut health to improve inflammation. So we came across that, and that seemed to fit fairly well. And we thought, well, look, let's give this a try. Even though it's designed for adults with rheumatoid arthritis, there's enough similarities in the processes that we thought it's valid to at least give it a try and see how we go with that. So,
and plus, I'd heard a lady do a podcast with a little boy who had JIA and had a really great response. And at that point, we just wanted to get our child better, because it was either that or methotrexate, and we weren't content to just go down that path quickly.
Yeah, so we talked about this with our rheumatologists. They weren't too thrilled about that concept, I must say. They were, they emphasised that there's no solid link, no proven science that would really show that food is really a major trigger in JIA. Look, our research was leading us to think that there's enough research to warrant giving it a try. So we wanted to do that, since we weren't really that comfortable with the side effect profile of some of the medications and the methods that they were talking about. So look, we did that. We started that process in March last year, March 2017, and it's now April 2018. And we have had steady improvement that whole time. In the early days, in the first few months, really to see if this was actually working, we kept pain diaries where we'd get our daughter to rate her pain out of 10 every day, actually 4 times a day.
Using smiley faces and numbers out of 10. And
pain scales out of 10. And so we got a fairly clear picture over time of what her average pain was doing. And it was
getting less.
It started off at about 6s and 7s out of 10, down to sort of 2s and 3s out of 10. And now we don't even keep those charts anymore, because
now there's zeros.
We talk about, we check with her, how things feeling, and she says, yeah, fine, it doesn't hurt, it's fine. So we've seen over the 12 plus months that we've done that, we've had a real good improvement. And now, that's not to say that everyone's going to have the same response and trying the same methods is going to work exactly the same. It's not. And that's part of the problem, we think, with why the medical system is kind of fairly reluctant to recommend this as a method, because it's very difficult to pick the different foods that are necessary to exclude.
Yes.
Because it's very individual. So one child will have it completely different to another. But we found that it's useful to do the testing, but then also to follow a protocol if you can. So
yeah. At first, we just tried to cut a few foods out, but then when we tried this Patterson program, we went right back to scratch, and only we're having very, very limited things. And like with a baby, introducing foods one by one, we went through that process, and that worked really well. We were vegan at one point and doing, very restricted diet, but it's paid off, and now we're able to do hikes as a family, and we've come a long way.
Just on that point about we tried different foods in the early stages. We suspected there were problems with her gut. As we talked about, there's a couple of years worth of gut pains, and so we tried different foods. We tried cutting out gluten. We tried cutting out dairy. We tried cutting out any processed foods. We tried a lot of different things, but we tried them mostly one at a time. And when we did this test, we found that there was, as I said, about 9 different foods that she was reacting to. So once we cleaned those all up at the same time, she got massively better. It seems that, just dropping out 1 or 2 of those foods at one time was not actually enough to get her to settle down in her health well enough. So, look, the approach that we now take is geared around improving her gut health so that her gut functions better, she processes her food better, and her immune system works better. And also about reducing her inflammation through a variety of means. So we try and get her out in the sun to get some vitamin D. Vitamin D is a really good immune regulator. We try to make sure that she gets some exercise, because that's good for the joints and also good for stress reduction, which is helpful to reduce inflammation too.
And mobility and strength.
We what else do
supplements.
We do? Various different supplements. We've tried, turmeric, and we've tried multivitamins. We supplement with vitamin D, various different
magnesium
ones to try and reduce inflammation. So look, there's a lot of different things we've done. We've tried a lot of things, not all of them that we still stick with, but we've tried a lot of things, and we're pretty happy that we're seeing steady improvement. We now hope and expect really that she'll continue to improve. So we've sort of stepped back from the focusing in on a diagnosis as such, worrying about JIA as a thing, but stepping back and looking at maybe how can we reduce her inflammation, how can we improve her immune system function, how can we get get things to be as healthy as they can be, so that her body can deal with whatever's going on as well as it can. Figure if she's got other health challenges happening at the same time, she's going to struggle more. So we've taken a fairly broad view and tried to reduce a lot of those factors, and we're seeing good results. So I guess the point of this is to try and encourage some of you to look into a few other options. There are a lot of things that you can do that will affect your child's health and their presentation with JIA, whether they've got single joint involvement or multiple joint involvement, whatever it might be. Our daughter has got multiple joints. She's had some fairly extensive involvement over time, but we're really fairly well on top of her symptoms. We don't have expectation of pain nowadays. We used to count the days where she didn't have to be carried. So if we would count days where we had to carry her and days when we didn't have to. Now it's like so unlikely that we'd have to carry her at all. Like,
We'd
it's just
be
not on our radar.
surprised.
You know,
We don't even
It's
think about it.
like things have come a long way, where we just don't have that level of inflammation and discomfort and dysfunction anymore. So
Even the rheumatologist and the physio last appointment were a bit baffled because they said, look, we expected her to be worse, but she's better. And look at her run. Look at that. It's amazing.
yeah, they were warning us that, you know, if we persisted with this sort of approach, then she'd be in a wheelchair and it'd essentially be our fault. So that did definitely require some conviction and persistence in pressing on. But
It was a not easy choice
but
either way.
yeah, that's the thing. You know, there's a lot of things that you are probably confronted with, and unfortunately, the information hasn't yet developed. The science behind JIA hasn't really developed enough yet to be able to know why it's happening. And so really the medications, as far as we could see, were kind of just managing the pain and the symptoms of it, but not really getting to the root of why it's happening. So at least this other model with the gut dysfunction leading to immune dysfunction, leading to autoimmune change, that gives at least a model as to why it might be occurring, that we can get a handle on. We can do things about that. So
We can be proactive.
that was really encouraging, and we wanted to be doing things about it. Like any of you, you know, if there's things you can do, you're pretty keen to do it. I you know, that's something we want to do as parents, isn't it? So, look, hopefully this has been helpful to some of you, to get you thinking a little bit about other things you might try. I really would encourage you to look at dietary things. You're probably going to need a little bit of help and guidance on that. So maybe work with a naturopath. We tried that.
Check out the Patterson program.
The Patterson program was very helpful. And so we don't strictly follow that anymore, but it was a very good starting point for us. Unfortunately, we were discouraged from taking this approach. So unfortunately, you might have to step outside some of the recommendations that you've been given if you really want to try this sort of thing. But, you know, whether you're on medication or not, whether you've had a big, long history with a diagnosis or not, you know, you can do things to improve your health. And this is definitely an area that we've worked on hard and have seen massive results in. So
Yes.
if you want to send us a message at all, ask us any further questions, I'm more than happy to explain and share with you more about what we've done. And this is not to say that we've got all the answers, but we've certainly seen improvement in what we've experienced. So we're quite encouraged in that.
And we want to encourage you.
Hope that you can find some sort of handle on this sort of situation for yourselves in your own context that works for you, that you can see some benefit.
Yes.
So all the best with it. And do get in touch with us if you want to know a little more about how we've handled it.
Yeah. Take care.
Thanks.